Too many Americans feel that way right now. It's one of the few regrets of my presidency that the rancor and suspicion between the parties has gotten worse instead of better. I have no doubt a president with the gifts of Lincoln or Roosevelt might have better bridged the divide. And I guarantee I'll keep trying to be better so long as I hold this office. But my fellow Americans, this cannot be my task or any president's alone. There are a whole lot of folks in this chamber, good people, who would like to see more cooperation, would like to see a more elevated debate in Washington, but feel trapped by the imperatives of getting elected, by the noise coming out of your base. I know, you've told me. It's the worst kept secret in Washington. And a lot of you aren't enjoying being trapped in that kind of rancor. But that means if we want a better politics, and I'm addressing the American people now, if we want a better politics, it's not enough just to change a congressman or change a senator or even change a president. We have to change the system to reflect our better selves.
Can you see how despondent Americans have become? Are you in touch with Americans who are depressed and discouraged? Can you feel the American despair that's obvious and not all that rare? It's this discrepancy that has penetrated this presidency as a thorn in the flesh and a knock at the back door of our conscious core. While congressional members still wrestle with memories of mistakes and moments in time that warrant retakes, there's no doubt that bridging the divide has become a Herculean task, requiring us to be a bit more transparent to reveal the true value of our election beyond the party's mask. And yet, hope is still alive and we can still make more of the change that we once believed in now and even then, way back during our initial campaign for America
so that
Win.
Politicians can pick their voters and not the other way around. Let a bipartisan group do it. I believe we've got to reduce the influence of money in our politics so that a handful of families or hidden interests can't bankroll our election. And if our existing approach to campaign finance reform can't pass muster in the courts, we need to work together to find a real solution, because it's a problem. And most of you don't like raising money. I know. I've done it. We've got to make it easier to vote, not harder. We need to modernize it for the way we live now. This is America. We want to make it easier for people to participate. And over the course of this year, I intend to travel the country to push for reforms that do just that.
Overall, America's political system requires a system overhaul to fulfill a constitutional purpose and consider a higher call. America's political system needs to reflect more of a partnership where cooperative efforts validate and rate the equality and shares of power that express a desire for America's government to go a little higher. There are some elected officials who are on board, constructing bridges of communication to ensure that all Americans and this government are more in accord. If we can walk together and talk together, then we can learn together and grow together. It may not be as easy as ABC or so easy that even a caveman can do it. However, it's like the multiplication table. A fact and not a fable. We exponentially grow when we multiply the time. Time spent discussing and debating. Time spent fussing and relating. Time spent planning and negating. And time spent on the campaign trail hearing concerns and rating.
But I can't do these things on my own. Changes in our political process, in not just who gets elected, But how they get elected, that will only happen when the American people demand it. It depends on you. That's what's meant by a government of, by and for the people. What I'm suggesting is hard. It's a lot easier to be cynical, to accept that change is not possible, and politics is hopeless. And the problem is, all the folks who are elected don't care, and to believe that our voices and our actions don't matter. But if we give up now, then we forsake a better future. Those with money and power will gain greater control over the decisions that could send a young soldier to war, or allow another economic disaster, or roll back the equal rights and voting rights that generations of Americans have fought, even died to secure. And then, as frustration grows, there will be voices urging us to fall back into our respective tribes, to scapegoat fellow citizens who don't look like us, or pray like us, or vote like we do, or share the same background.
Let's get soaked by more storms, called much-needed reforms. Reforms in how politicians politic the political process. Reforms in campaign finance that has shortchanged the donor and allowed candidates to receive more and give less. Reforms that reflect of, by, and for the people with a voice that speaks to somebody, about everybody, and their valuable vote for victory. Reforms in how Mr. and Mrs. Money influences the cash flow and political streams that are shielded from discovery. Ready, set, go! When America is ready and the stage is set is when we're good to green light go with this reform flow. There's a new breed grooming and growing to take the lead on what America is becoming. In God we trust.
We can't afford to go down that path. It won't deliver the economy we want. It will not produce the security we want. But most of all, it contradicts everything that makes us the envy of the world. So my fellow Americans, whatever you may believe, whether you prefer one party or no party, whether you supported my agenda or fought as hard as you could against it, our collective futures depends on your willingness to uphold your duties as a citizen, to vote, to speak out, to stand up for others, especially the weak, especially the vulnerable, knowing that each of us is only here because somebody, somewhere, stood up for us. We need every American to stay active in our public life, and not just during election time, so that our public life reflects the goodness and the decency that I see in the American people every single day. It is not easy. Our brand of democracy is hard. But I can promise that a little over a year from now, when I no longer hold this office, I will be right there with you as a citizen, inspired by those voices of fairness and vision, of grit and good humor and kindness that have helped America travel so far. Voices that help us see ourselves not first and foremost as black or white or Asian or Latino, not as gay or straight, immigrant or native born, not Democrat or Republican, but as Americans first, bound by a common creed. Voices Dr. King believed would have the final word. Voices of unarmed truth and unconditional love.
In the meantime, we're recruiting the rich and raggedy to motivate a national movement that's monumental and so unforgettable that the next generation testifies that what we did was outstanding and incredible. Let's go! In the meantime, we're building our belief up because we're fed up and have an appetite for a political fight to guarantee more delight than a future fright. Let's go! In the meantime, we're remembering every sacrifice that didn't feel so nice and the economic disaster that took us more than a season to master. Let's go! In the meantime, we're standing on guard with faith's shield in a Costner-like dream field. Let's go! In the meantime, we're still strong and sizzling hot, like stir-fry in a pot, and always on point like a lefty's jump shot. Let's go! In the meantime, join our crew if you're highly motivated and believe that the government system is outdated to give you what's tangible and true and long overdue. Let's go! In the meantime, we're ready to rally and report for reform rectifying duty to do our very best, like a tenacious tribe with an unquenchable quest. Let's go! In the meantime, we're representing the weary and wounded, the warrior and wanderer, the urbanite and farmers, in a society where hunters hang out with gatherers. Let's go! In the meantime, we're asking for prayer, a petition, and the private encouraging that promotes a new government edition. Let's go! In the meantime, we're steadfast and immovable to make progressions in politicking that's good and finger-licking. Let's go! In the meantime, and while we are waiting for results that are inevitable and favorable, we'll keep shining because of ideas that are out of this world like Mork and Mindy, to engineer envy. Let's go! In the meantime, we're focused on what's right, to remember the Republican who'll join the fight, and we're ready to deal with what's left for the Democrat that's destined to walk this worn path, and manage more haters and their wrath. Let's go! In the meantime, we're asking every citizen to cultivate their culture and connections, so that we can enlist greater declarations during the next round of elections. Let's go! In the meantime, we're asking someone somewhere to stay focused and keep standing in the fight to face this nation's political dilemma with a dare and stare. In the meantime, we're grateful for the grit and goodwill of awesome American visionaries who are diverse, accustomed to embracing the ethnicities of the universe, and who are always a step above, like Dr. King described as those victorious voices of unarmed truth and unconditional love.
And they're out there, those voices. They don't get a lot of attention. They don't seek a lot of fanfare. But they're busy doing the work that this country needs doing. I see them everywhere I travel in this incredible country of ours. I see you, the American people. And in your daily acts of citizenship, I see our future unfolding.
Let's go, let's get up and go. Every voice with a bound-up bellow that's been forced to be mellow. Let's go, let's get up and go. Every outward yes despite an inward no, that was like stage fright before the big show. Let's go, let's get up and go. Every strong and confidence-inspiring entity that's overshadowed by the reality of obscurity. Let's go, let's get up and go.
I see it in the worker on the assembly line who clocked extra shifts to keep his company open. And the boss who pays him higher wages instead of laying him off. I see it in the dreamer who stays up late at night to finish her science project. And the teacher who comes in early. Maybe with some extra supplies that she bought because she knows that that young girl might someday cure a disease.
Every assembly line worker and business that backs them up with a wage that says, you're an appreciated earner. Let's go, let's get up and go. Every endeavor, encourager, and edifier who's able to navigate circumstances that may sometimes be dire. Let's go, let's get up and go.
I see it in the American who served his time, made bad mistakes as a child, but now is dreaming of starting over. And I see it in the business owner who gives them that second chance. The protester determined to prove that justice matters. and the young cop walking the beat, treating everybody with respect, doing the brave, quiet work of keeping us safe.
Every inmate and office mate who accepts first opportunity and second chances with contentment and without judgment or strife for a term of no less than life. Let's go, let's get up and go. Every eager, young mind with a voice, and in a police uniform with a dangerous choice, on either side of a demonstration line that'll life and death matter, to the former and the latter. Let's go, let's get up and go.
Folks, the big pharma is still going to do very well, I promise you all. I promise you they're going to do very well. This law also caps, and won't even go into effect until 2025, costs, out-of-pocket drug costs for seniors on Medicare at a maximum of $2,000 a year. You don't have to pay more than $2,000 a year, no matter how much your drug costs are. Because you know why? You all know it. Many of you, like many in my family, have cancer. You know the drugs can range from $10, $11, $14, $15,000 for the cancer drugs. If drug prices rise faster than inflation, drug companies are going to have to pay Medicare back the difference. We're finally giving Medicare the power to negotiate drug prices. Bringing down prescription drug costs doesn't just save seniors money, it cuts the federal deficit by billions of dollars, by hundreds of billions of dollars. Because these prescription drugs are drugs purchased by Medicare to keep their commitment to the seniors. Well, guess what? Instead of paying $400 or $500 a month, you're paying $15. That's a lot of savings for the federal government. And by the way, why would we want that? Now some members here are threatening, and I know it's not an official party position, so I'm not going to exaggerate, but threatening to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. As my coach, that's okay, that's fair. As my football coach used to say, lots of luck in your senior year. Make no mistake, if you try anything to raise the cost of prescription drugs, I will veto it. Look, I'm pleased to say that more Americans have health insurance now than ever in history. A record 16 million people are enrolled in the Affordable Care Act. And thanks to the law I signed last year, saving millions are saving $800 a year on their premiums. And by the way, that law was written and the benefit expires in 2025. So my plea to some of you, at least in this audience, let's finish the job and make these savings permanent. Expand coverage of Medicaid.
You know that drugs are pricey. Yeah, and if you ask me, that's a little shady and dicey. Faster than inflation, drug prices are steady like Freddy on the upswing, and Medicare is waiting to see how much of a check will drug companies bring. This will help reduce the federal deficit and save taxpayers more dollars and cents on government Medicare drug purchases that never made sense. That's the right thing to do for all our beloved American crew. Some congressional members are huffing and puffing about their appeal to repeal an Inflation Act, that's all that. And I've got veto letters all on my mind, pen in hand and ready to sign if they're unkind. Folks, history tells us that we have more Americans medically insured than medically ignored. Even the broke have broken their unhealthy uninsured cord. 16 million strong are hanging around because they can afford to, covered just in case their stomach aches or they feel a little blue. The law is officially on the books and more meaning is glowing, since I put pen to paper and premium savings started flowing. We'll have to wait until 2025 to see if the law is still alive. Come on, it will be fun when we get it all done and let loose Medicaid for more covered Americans on the run. Share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more episodes from this video series.